Hello, everyone. Although it might seem incredible, the mind doesn't actually know reality. What knows reality is experience. Now, this is not to say we shouldn't read books or that we shouldn't worry about using form and labels to describe things with our mind, but we need to understand that there's layers of understanding. And being able to recite something from your intellect is different than being able to recite something from experience. It's like driving a car. You can read all the books on how to drive a car, and you can take all of the tests and like learn it with your mind. However, when you actually are driving a car and you need to take a driver's test, if you've done all the studying but you've never actually driven the car, you're gonna fail a driver's test because you didn't. It's a completely different experience when you actually experience it, and then you actually know. Then you actually learn because when you drive the car with experience, you've done it. So, what does this mean for us? This means that we need to watch what's happening within ourselves, because if we find ourselves relying on our intellect to be the captain of the ship, then this is really setting us up for failure. And our mind loves to limit reality. It loves to fantasize. It loves to dream. It loves to think about the future. It loves to see and explain and tell us logical reasons as to why we don't have what we need, why everything we're doing is wrong, and why we should be scared. And you can see this because sometimes for some of us, simply making like breakfast in the morning can seem like an awfully like intense task. And meanwhile, with someone like Elon Musk, it's like conquering Mars seems like the same level of difficulty as like opening up a coffee shop or like making breakfast. So what's going on here is that there are limitations in the mind, and it is unbelievable how much latent power is there for us to leverage. So we want to do that. We want to work with that. So how do we do this? Well, when our mind starts chattering and it starts with another narrative, you'll see there's probably like a few like themes in your mind. Like there's a narrative that tends to be about self-pity. There's a narrative that tends to be about how you don't have enough something, whatever it is, money, friends, happiness, you don't have enough. Or maybe there's a narrative about another thing. Okay, this is all an illusion. So we must first absolutely comprehend this is completely an illusion, because all it takes is like getting swept away by like seeing a beautiful person or playing your instrument and just doing a creative hobby that you really love. Think about that contrast, and then you realize it's complete illusion. The mind doesn't know anything. And so as soon as you start seeing this is beautiful. This is very good, because now you're seeing, oh, okay, the mind loves to do this. Now we need to ground ourselves. So how do we ground ourselves? Well, when the mind starts doing this and we have the intention and realize that this is not helpful to actually continue thinking and fantasizing, okay, now that we have that intention, we can actually ground ourselves. We can actually be present. You can't be present if you don't actually realize that identifying with the mind is sucking you out of the present. You are not present if you are thinking and identified with thoughts. Why? You can see this in lectures, for example. If someone is giving a public speech and they're really present, they're there, then they're talking from the heart, and you can sense the energy. Like if you have ever heard someone like tell you something and you just don't feel like it's resonating, it's like, that wasn't exactly like what I needed to hear. But then sometimes someone says something like the Dalai Lama could like say something to someone and it could be one word. All this man would have to do is say one to 5 words. Would he be saying as much as other people who are well studied and intellectual? No, he would literally say a few words. And these words would have so much gravity that they would be like life-changing for whoever would hear them. Why? Because it's coming from the consciousness. It's coming from the energy. This is the presence that I'm talking about. So there's this can happen because there's presence, not thinking. So if you're so we can literally sense that in ourselves, whether something is coming from the intellect or whether it's coming from experience, and we sense that contrast and power. Which is why if we're listening to someone, maybe we really feel like we connect to them, like something that the Dalai Lama says. It's because it's not on that like shallow level of understanding in the intellect, but it's on that deeper level of understanding in the consciousness and experience. Because you're talking to someone who has driven the car, who's learned the car, instead of someone who's just studied about the car but never freaking driven it. So how do we become the drivers, the ones with experience who can do this, who can really be present? Because when we're present, we can actually like transfer energy that is life-changing to people, and we can actually help people, and we can actually be at a high vibration. How do we do this? So we have that intention of moving out of the mind and coming into experience, and then we constantly ground ourselves over and over, because then the mind is like, oh no, but we got to think, we got to worry about the food. No. Wrong. Every time you keep hitting that vibration of presence, of staying unidentified with the mind. So that first thing is just the intention of not identifying with the mind. The next thing, and I'm really simplifying this, is to do anything you can do to ground yourself. For example, you can literally talk out loud about what you're doing. Like for me, I was emptying the dishwasher the other day and I was like, oh my goodness, my mind is just, this mind guy, this mind, monkey mind, wants to just think and think. And I was like, okay, well, I can either do these dishes and literally be in a dream and not be here. I'm better off dead if I'm like doing that. Literally. Because what am I doing? I'm emptying the dishes, but what am I really doing? I'm elsewhere. If I'm identified with the dreams, with the mind and all these thoughts and everything, then I'm not there. So I had the intention. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this chore, but I have the intention to be present. So that was hard for me, because it was hard for me to focus on one thing at a time, because I'm not truly present if I'm not actually doing one thing at a time. And I literally just tried to be present by doing one thing at a time. And I spoke out loud. I was like, okay, I'm picking up this dish. I am putting it in the cabinet. Maybe it would be about the sounds I'm hearing. Maybe it would be about what I'm seeing. Maybe it would be about any sort of sense or texture. But one thing at a time. If I didn't do this and speak it out loud, then I wouldn't be able to focus my attention on one thing at a time, because the mind can operate at 1,000,000 miles per hour and have a gazillion thoughts in the span of 1 second about, oh, this cup, this is, what am I going to do tomorrow? Oh, I feel, no, it's ridiculous. It's hilarious. It's actually very amusing. So when you do this, you start to realize like, oh, okay, I can start to do one thing at a time actually. And then this is very grounding, because you're actually becoming present. Being lost in constant thoughts is not being present. So this is something that any of us can do. And yeah, if you feel like you're weird for like talking to yourself, then that's okay, because it's better to be present than to identify with another dream about how you feel embarrassed about yourself. So yeah, this is what I recommend. This is why walks in nature are really powerful. So you can just talk to yourself. What do you hear? What do you see? So when I did this and I was emptying the dishwasher, I noticed that by speaking, I couldn't speak about all the thoughts I was having. It'd be impossible because there were so many. So when I was speaking, I was just speaking about that one thing that I was doing. And yeah, did it feel a little weird and silly? Yes, it did. But especially in times when we notice that the mind wants to really be the captain and suck all of our energy, it's draining. It actually feeds off of this. This is something we can do. Anything to be present. And if there's something, if you have the time then to go do a something creative or something that will help you be present, like meditation or going on a walk, then that's good too. And if it's hard to be present, you can literally just talk out loud and say each thing that you're doing. And so, yes, this is getting us grounded into experience, because then you're actually talking about what you are experiencing. Now, this is on a physical level. We've talked about the intellect, we've talked about the physical level. Now, sometimes we'll feel very emotional, and that's also okay. I think with emotion, there are certain situations where we might be triggered, because I could go on a walk and say, yes, I hear the sounds of my shoes on the ground. I hear the sounds of the birds. I see the trees. I see the clouds. This is very physically grounding. But sometimes we may notice the emotional center in the heart, like we feel these emotions. We can use our whatever feels right to also describe that as well. Whatever we can do to leave all of the fantasies and just come back into experience. So, for example, maybe you start to feel emotional as you're walking and you're describing what you're physically doing, seeing, hearing, etc. And then you notice like some emotion, like, okay, I'm feeling, you're describing the physical sensations, and then you can also, if it feels right, you can describe the feelings to yourself as well. Like I feel overwhelmed, I feel excited, I feel anxious, and then you're just kind of like labeling what's going on. And when that starts to be a lot and you notice your mind taking over, the safest way to go is to always come back to what you're physically doing, because nothing matters more than exactly what you're doing. Me making this video, nothing matters more than this video. But if I'm having all sorts of concepts and trying to follow a strategy to record this, it'll be much harder and draining for me, and also it won't transfer very well to the audience. This video will transfer very well to whoever watches it because it's coming from my experience. It's coming from a place of not really thinking, but I'm grounded, which means I'm on the vibration of presence. The vibration of presence is very powerful. It's a high vibration because it's not identified with fear or lack like the mind loves to do. So this transfers very well because the consciousness in this video, it's an energetic transfer. And because I'm not, and yes, has it been hard and have I done this perfectly? Absolutely not. But I would say, as I'm recording this video, I'm not doing it in a very conceptual, intellectual way, which means that it's resonating with whoever's watching this, because it's less about the concepts and all about the energy. So yeah, I hope that this is helpful. We want to ground ourselves physically, and if it helps to also, if we feel emotionally triggered, like if someone says, we can kind of do this internally with ourselves as well, like how are we feeling emotionally. But safest bet is always, what are you doing right now? And if you need to talk out loud in order to do that, you can do that. But to be unidentified with all the thoughts and emotions and to just dedicate your entire collection of attention onto exactly what you're doing, this is the vibration of infinity. Now when you're at this, you feel better and you can attract everything that your soul could ever want. Because when you're identified with fear and lack, your vessel's blocked. You have darkness. How can light come in if you're identified with what is interfering with the light? Don't identify with that. You see your mind start chattering? Okay, what am I doing? What's going on? What am I feeling? What's happening? Observe yourself. Don't let yourself get identified with the constant fantasies and dreams, especially when it seems super real. It's not. It's an illusion. And I'm only saying this with such vigor because I notice this in my own self a lot. So I'm really making this video as well as a means for like kind of assisting myself with this, because I can just absolutely assure you that especially when I feel like I want something or there's like an outcome that I feel attached to, I'm like, oh, my mind just wants to feel scared about that and try to control it. So it's like, okay, let me return to what I'm doing and just like ground myself. So I hope that this video is helpful. If you want to go into anything more in depth, you can let me know. Okay, goodbye. Peace.